Everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is our 245th episode. Yes, it is. Being recorded on April 3rd, 2013. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Maldentano.
Apparently all the Canadian packets coming to our office the last couple of days are having some issues. We did a game stream yesterday with Robert,
awesome.
Who's in Toronto, and he couldn't get his video to work today. Jeremy's having problems with video. There must be a new federal law that went into effect or something about...
It must be a tariff.
Yeah, you didn't pay your taxes, Jeremy.
Extra duty on those packets.
Packets don't have the express card.
So I am back in the studio after 2 weeks away. 2 weeks ago, I wasn't even on the show. You guys did a magnificent job, probably. Last week, I was at GDC and doing some other meetings as well. Now we are back in our normal configuration. We have Josh, we have Alan, we have Jeremy, we have me, we have Ken sitting over there. He didn't steal my microphone this time since I wasn't at the office. But we got... what's going on? Oh, my video. Oh, I see. We've got a replacement me. In case something should go awry with my video, we have a replacement me avatar. So what happened this week? Well, first thing is you missed our BioShock Infinite game stream. We had Robert Halleck from AMD with us again. We played, I don't know, the video was, recorded video was about 90 minutes. We probably played about an hour of the game or something like that. Little bit of spoilers in there, but not much. Obviously, we started at the very beginning of the game and went through the first hour. If you missed it, you can go to this post at pcper.com and catch the replay of the stream if you want to watch it. I don't die ever, I don't think. I put it on easy, to be completely fair, though. But we gave away some stuff there. We gave away 2 Radeon 7870 cards. We gave away 3 combo codes for Tomb Raider and BioShock Infinite. And then Robert just kind of randomly pasted BioShock Infinite codes into the chat room during the stream as well. So there was definitely, you missed out if you weren't there. But the good news is, right before the show, I kind of wandered around the office for a little bit looking for something to give away, and I found this. This is a, let's see how, I'm going to pick one. This is a Rocat Cave or a Rocket. I'm going to say them both. I'm going to go with Rocat brand because of the cat icon there. And this is a 5.1 channel gaming headset. It actually has both USB connection and analog. So it actually has the 4 analog inputs coming out of this. It is what they call a full surround real 5.1 surround. Speakers aligned at 12-degree angles. I tell you, it's pretty impressive looking just from the specs. It's $120 currently selling on Amazon. We're going to give that away. How do you win this? The answer is both easy and complicated. If you're watching us record this live, you're going to have to come back to pcper.com tomorrow. Sorry, that's part of the deal. We just want you to come back to the website again. And go to the podcast entry for this episode, number 245, and we'll have a contest form at the bottom of the post where you can leave your name and email address, and then we'll wait a few days and draw randomly to win the Rocat Rocket Cave 5.1 headset. If I say both of them, we'll just have Ken edit out whichever one is incorrect.
As long as you don't call it a cave.
Yeah.
If only it had an R in there, then it'd be Crave.
No.
Or Caver.
Hey, you know, one of those 3.5 millimeter, it's a microphone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
well, okay.
So it's not nearly as impressive
so it's
as you would
2.1
think.
faked to 5.1?
No, there's 4 connections. There's 4 3.5 millimeter jacks. So 3 for the speakers and 1 for the headphone, for the microphone, right? Yeah. That's 5.1.
Sure is.
I got it. I figured it out
in the
eventually.
house.
Math is hard. Sometimes you got to deal with it. So let's talk about hardware news. We're probably going to talk about it for a little bit today. The continued release of data gathered through the frame rating stuff, capture testing, GPU performance analysis, that kind of deal.
Because you know what they say, tragedy prolonged turns into comedy.
Now, I think that's tragedy plus time. I don't think it means prolonged as in drawn out. I think it means getting past it. So unfortunately, it's not really funny for AMD yet. But maybe in the future it will be. So last week we talked about the initial release of the story, the explanation of what the process was, what the caveats were, what the data was, how we analyzed the data that we got from our new hardware capture-based performance metrics. This week, what we actually did was I released 2 more subsets of data. The first one was here, the GeForce GTX Titan against the GeForce GTX 690 versus the Radeon HD 7990, which should be in quotes because it's actually HD 7970s in Crossfire. Now, this comes on the tail end of just a couple of days before this went up. AMD actually announced the HD 7990 was going to be coming out. But the 7990 actually already existed. It was sold as the ASUS Aries 2, and it was being sold as the PowerColor Devil 13, and actually used the 7990 name on that card. So, you know, when I posted this, there are some trolls out there still. There's some people who just like to piss and moan about stuff. And what, you know, one of the complaints was, how can you possibly say you're comparing it to a 7990 when it's not even out yet? And I said, well, the 7990 technically is out. And the 7990 that we get from AMD as a reference platform will be very, very, very similar, if not identical, to what PowerColor and ASUS have done with their designs. So I am very confident that our 7990 performance metrics are going to be very close, if not identical, to what you'll see with the reference design when it comes out. This article obviously looked at, you know, the really expensive cards. So the GTX 690 and the Titan are both $1,000 cards, and then 7990, as it currently exists today, is like $1,200 or above. Was that what the Aries kind of goes for, and the PowerColor Devil 13? And then when the 7990 actually comes out, it may be $999, it may be $899. You know, it's not going to be $499. I can tell you that much. So we'll see how it goes from there. Real quick, you know, here let me show you Battlefield 3, just because that's a game that
everybody has.
Yeah, we can all relate to very easily as my Wi-Fi continues to try to load this page. The general rule of how this performance comparison stood out was the single GPU performance of the Titan, because the Titan, keep in mind, is a single GK110 part, and GTX 690 is 2 GK104s, and the 7970 Crossfire is obviously 7970s in a Crossfire configuration. So you're running into, for $1,000, is it maybe more interesting to have a single card versus 2 GPUs, or single GPU versus 2 GPUs? And as it turned out, I don't know why this page isn't loading for me right now, but we'll bring it up in a second, is if you look at average frame rates, over each second, the GTX 690 is more often than not faster than the GTX Titan. And that's something we saw in our initial Titan review, and that was the initial complaint about the release of Titan, is why would you release a brand new card that costs more or the same as a card that was already on the market that has lower performance? And at the time, I think NVIDIA was a little bit kind of cautious about saying why. They were kind of saying things like, well, you know, this one might be really good for single display, and one might be good for triple display. And as it turns out, if we look at, let me go down to 2560 by 1440 here, now that we've loaded our Battlefield 3 reviews page. If you look at these 3 cards, the orange line is Crossfire 7970s, the blue line is 690, and the green line is Titan. And you can see there, Titan is actually the lowest performer, followed by the 690 and then the 7970 Crossfire. That's the Fraps-based metrics, what you would get if you looked at Fraps numbers. If we go to observed numbers, we see immediately Crossfire has a problem. It actually drops below the Titan in our observed frame rates, and then this is our frame times. And what is maybe, let me zoom in on this image a little bit here, and what's easy to see is that the orange of the 7990 or the 7970 Crossfire is problematic, right? You're seeing a lot of back and forth frame oscillation, but compared to
but the people in the Netherlands are proud.
They are. They want to blanket their color across the screen. But look at the green line and the blue line. So the green line is the Titan, and the blue line is the 690. Now the blue line is lower than the green line, indicating lower frame times, which means better performance. Lower frame times, higher frame rates, better performance overall. But if you look at the thickness of that band of color, green versus blue, you'll see that the green is thinner the entire time, right? And that basically means that you are seeing more consistent frame times on a continual basis than you get on the 690. Let's look at the 5760 result, and you'll actually see that is even more apparent, right? So here's 5760 by 1080 comparing the 690 and the Titan. And with the 690, not only is the band wider, but you get these kind of stuttery hitches of color, these kind of spikes in frame rate that aren't nearly as bad as what you get from Crossfire. But if you look at and you compare that to the Titan result, the Titan result is consistent. It's very smooth. There's only a couple of instances of that hitching, and you start to see the benefit of a single GPU, and you see the benefit of the larger frame buffer size as well. So keep in mind that the 690 only has 2 gigs per GPU, whereas a Titan has 6 gigs for its single large GPU. And that's kind of an important distinction. Is what I came up with as my final conclusion in this one was 7970 Crossfire, aka 7990, has a lot of problems. It's the same problems we saw in our first article. If you want to look at Titan versus 690, this presents it in a unique light in that it kind of makes sense now. For a single display where the resolution is not super high, 2560 by 1440 is going to be a stretch in some games, but 19 by 10 definitely makes sense this way. That the 690 makes a better, it's a better purchase option because you're not, the 2 gig frame buffer is enough, and the frame rates are going to be higher and your frame times are going to be lower, but there's not going to introduce a huge amount of stutter. If you are going to use, or you think you might use, multiple displays, the Titan makes more sense because now you're seeing more consistent frame times at a little bit lower frame rate, but more consistent, which should be less stutter, less frame hitching, less of all of that type of stuff that would happen to you. And that's partially because it's a single GPU, and partially because it is has a 6 gig frame buffer. Sorry. So I was just paging through some other results here to see if anything stood out. So that's kind of how we reconfigure the 690 and the Titan. And then if you want to put the 7990 in there, I know some people aren't a big fan of using this at this time, especially since we're going to see a release of that sooner rather than later now. It doesn't paint a good scenario for AMD's capability to produce a card with dual GPUs on it and have it be a reliable, consistent experience. We've been going back and forth with AMD on this since the release of that first article at the end of March. When was that? The 26th or the 27th of March. And they have admitted that there's an issue, but they are saying that the issue is less dramatic than we think it is, and that it offers some benefits in terms of input latency compared to a frame-metered, evenly distributed option. And that's something that we're trying to learn how to, or trying to research how to actually test and show results from in some kind of scientific method at this point as well. So
have they sent Agent 47 out for you yet?
Not yet, or if they have, he's been thwarted by my tightly shut blinds and the locked front door.
And Ken.
Yeah, and my dog is here sometimes, and that can be scary. So, the other article I posted was the same setup, same games types. We're using our frame rating performance analysis, only this time we're doing on the 660 Ti versus the Radeon HD 7950. The first thing I'll tell you, if you email me and complain about me not using the GTX 670, I will probably reach through the screen and smack you, because I had a lot of that complaint in our comments and on Reddit and other places, and it really comes down to pricing, right? We're not comparing the second card in terms of release versus the second card in terms of release. The 660 Ti sells for, where do I have that here? $289 on Newegg. The Radeon 7950 sells for $299 on Newegg. So that is as close as you can get almost in this generation of graphics cards for a single performance or a head-to-head comparison. The GTX 670 on the other hand is $359. So we're talking a huge percentage jump up for that. We'll test the 670 eventually. It's not in this article. So the 660 Ti versus 7950, very similar results to what we saw for the 7970 versus the GTX 680, meaning the single GPU performance, the 7950 is the better card. It just flat out is. It performs better. It has more frame buffer. It has 3 gig of memory instead of 2 gigs of memory. And in all of our testing and all of our games, it's pretty much the 7950 is the better card for the price. Now, what happens is when you add in that second GPU, when you go to SLI 660 Ti's, you go to Crossfire 7950s, the story changes, because once you get to most of the games and at least Crysis 3, Battlefield 3, and Sleeping Dogs, those 3 of our 6 tested titles showed significant frame time variance from one card to 2 cards that sucks, right? It doesn't produce, it's not producing a better frame rate for you, and we think it introduces significant amounts of stutter or less smooth animation, if you will. So, again, the website's not wanting to load on my Wi-Fi for me. It kind of comes down to the same thing we saw before, right? So as we'll see tomorrow, hopefully we'll have the 7870 versus GTX 660 article up, and it will paint a very similar story. And then we'll go down the line to the 7850 versus the 650 Ti and 650 Ti Boost, and it will paint a very similar story of where in single GPU scenarios, AMD still has the better performance per dollar. If we take out other features and power consumption and all that kind of stuff, it's still the better cards performance-wise. If we look at multi-GPU performance, it starts to put into question how much you want to invest in that system. If you know you're never going to want to use multiple GPUs, buy 7950. If you think you might want to use multiple GPUs, buy 660 Ti. That's kind of where my stance is today based on this new article. I know we had a lot of questions. I'm trying to think of what was brought into question now over the last week, because this testing methodology is now starting to percolate out through a lot of different forums, the NeoGAF forums, the overclock.net forums, on Reddit, in all these different areas, that they're starting to kind of finally read it and try to grasp it. And there are some complaints. There are some people that are just plain out bitching, and there are a lot of fanboys out there that because I'm putting their $1,000 graphics card investment into question, that they're going to come out and attack us as you would expect. Did you guys have any thoughts about it, having sat on it for a week, or is it really just since we've been talking about it internally for so long that you kind of knew what to expect?
Can you ask Tom when my Porsche's getting here?
Oh yeah, good point. You didn't get yours yet?
No, haven't seen it. Must be stuck at the border.
It's Canadian customs, right? So, in case you guys weren't aware, NVIDIA paid me to write all this stuff, so in kind of a response, they're buying us all cars and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you get your car, Alan? Oh, they're making you put yours back together, aren't they?
Yeah. I got it. It was some assembly required.
Yeah. So we got accused of a lot of NVIDIA bias.
They sent me a year's supply of Rogaine.
That was actually me. That was a Christmas gift.
You know what really kills me about the whole bias thing?
What?
Like, you have the actual output from the cards. It's not like you did some voodoo trickery and all of a sudden made AMD be crappy at this test.
So here's how the conspiracy theory went that I read, where we posted those preview articles, like frame rating part 1, 2, and 3. And I did not disclose during those preview articles that some of these tools came from NVIDIA. And they said I didn't disclose it at all, in which case somebody else pointed them to the first page of the article, where there's the first half of that first page is NVIDIA's involvement. That's the subtitle. And I did not mention it in the previews because I wasn't allowed to. I was very much skirting the edge of what they wanted me to discuss at all in those preview articles, and I was desperately trying to get this information out to people as soon as we could, and I was leveraging the fact that I had worked with them for so long on this project, and had done so much testing and evaluation work and kind of beta testing and doing a lot of our own analysis, that I wanted to be able to share that with readers. And so we didn't mention NVIDIA because they didn't want us to. And it's not because I didn't want to tell anybody about it. And now that this whole story is out, everybody knows about it. So there's no NVIDIA bias there. And I also think it's funny, like literally, NVIDIA has not spent $1 marketing or advertising with our website in probably a year, maybe a year and a half or something like that. Like if anything, it's been the exact opposite way. AMD's advertised on our website for a long time, and yet we still publish these results because that's not what we're about. We are not... the advertising decisions are made completely separately from the editorial decisions, and that's the way we want to keep it. So,
and as upset as you might be, notice that AMD has not withdrawn their ads from our site.
They have not. They did not. And it's because they understand that there's a problem. I've been talking with them behind the scenes as well, saying, hey, these are the things that we're seeing. I didn't blindside them with this. I showed them these results a little bit before we published them and said, here's what we're going to see. We got feedback from them, and we're continuing to have conversations on an almost daily basis about what they're doing and why they think some of my results might not be as, let's say, they differ on how much of an effect the animation gaps we are seeing actually cause from an individual user basis. And there's some validity to that. Every user sees something a little bit different when they look at stuttery or kind of lower frame rate animations and that kind of thing. So, no, we're not paid stooges from NVIDIA. Scott at Tech Report, Angelini at Tom's Hardware, they all posted stuff based on these exact same tools. I guess they're paid off too. I don't really know. I didn't get that memo. I wasn't at that meeting. So that's you know what? At the end of the day, that's good, right? If somebody, the rule of thumb is if you're being accused of being biased, as long as you're being accused of being biased in both directions at different times, that's usually a good sign, right? That usually means you're actually writing something. And I understand that if I was a gamer and I spent $1,000 on two HG7970s and I had to pay for them out of my own money, I'm lucky I don't have to pay for the hardware that I get, that I would be aggravated and upset, and I might feel the need to kind of defend my pride, defend my purchase, and kind of lash out at people. I think it's the shittiest part of the internet, but that's what happens when you give anonymous voice to everybody all of the time. So, any other thoughts or questions that may have cropped up? Ken, did you have anything that maybe we saw in the comments or something that I wanted to specifically address? I haven't gotten to go through the comments on each article and keep up. I think the first one was up over 230 comments or something like that. And
so, just to clear up one thing, if you don't run the NVIDIA tools and you capture frames with your own piece of hardware that you bought,
oh yeah,
you still see the run frames.
Absolutely, yeah. If we
there
don't,
you go. That settles it.
Yeah, if we don't use the overlay software, I can still capture video. We did that with the first article actually. We captured video and we showed you the runts. We added color to the complete frame just to kind of overemphasize what we were seeing on an individual frame basis. And actually, it was funny. Yesterday, the day before, Ken and I were looking up because somebody accused us of, we claimed that this was our work when it was all NVIDIA's 100% of the way. I looked up the receipt for the data path capture card that we used to capture this, and
How many had sold in North America before you bought one?
0.
Exactly.
Was it over 9,000?
No, it was less than 9,000.
Oh, good.
It was me. And I bought it on September. It shipped. I contacted them on September 5th of 2011. And it shipped on September 18th of 2011.
11?
11. So
not 12.
It's been 18 months? Yeah. So I'd had this hardware for 18 months, and then the software was very raw when we got it. We were working with those guys, and, I don't want to go into that whole backstory stuff again, but I just found it aggravating, and Ken always has to tell me to not go on the internet and argue with people on the internet, because that's what I like. When somebody takes a project that you've been working on for this long and starts to accuse you of bias or accuse you of being just plain wrong or misinterpreting everything. Somebody in a chat room I was in today said, I just don't think you've spent enough time with this. And I was like, well, okay, I don't think, I guess in the article it doesn't say very specifically, I've been looking at these types of data results for 9 months. It doesn't say that I didn't just run these over a week and vomit up all this text and graphs and information, right? It was a
well, how do you expect I do, motherboard reviews? It's all kinds of vomiting.
Well, yeah. But then you
Have
clean
you
it
seen
off,
my
right?
graphs?
Yeah. No, I get you. So throughout the rest of the week, hopefully Thursday or Friday, I'll have the 7870 versus 660, and after that, one more that looks at the 7850 and 650 Ti boost, and then we're going to go back and start to look at the different suggestions we've had from. I've had several game developers email me. I've had lots of just concerned gamers email me. We've had lots of suggestions to try out the Radeon Pro software, which I had an argument with somebody in the chat room about today. We will try that. We will retry NVIDIA's different adaptive VSync options. A good suggestion was, hey, have you tried turning off hyperthreading on these systems and seeing how that affects it? Because he had said in a previous game that it was on Windows 7, I think Windows 8 handles threading a little bit better than Windows 7 did, that could be an issue. And so there's lots of things we're going to try to see how we can make AMD's look better right? Or how we can make NVIDIA's look worse, or however, we want to see what the different variances are on this type of stuff. The argument I had about Radeon Pro today was, they said, well, it's not a valid article because you didn't use Radeon Pro, which is a third-party application that enables, what's it enable? Enables like frame rate capping and that kind of stuff, and a kind of pseudo adaptive VSync. And I was like, okay, I mean, I'll try that software, but to say that it's an invalid point of view because it's not an AMD piece of software, it doesn't install with your driver, it doesn't install with Catalyst Control Center, it's not developed by AMD, despite the fact that it has the word Radeon in the name. It's an interesting tool. We'll take a look at it. We're going to take a look at Afterburner. We're going to see what other stuff we've done. We've already gotten our first replacement for the NVIDIA built overlay. So people that were worried about the fact that we're using an NVIDIA built overlay tool, the developers of Riva Tuner have added in an overlay that we've been beta testing and kind of validating that the performance looks identical between the NVIDIA one and this Riva one, and it does. So we'll be able to use that in our system. Anybody will have access to that overlay. You won't have access to the capture hardware or whatever, but yeah. So expect us to talk about this every week for the foreseeable future, at least to some degree. Tomorrow I'll be on This Week in Computer Hardware with not Patrick, actually, but we'll talk about it then a little bit. And then on Friday night, I'm probably going to go on Linus Tech Tips show, which is like midnight Eastern time, because they talked about that last Friday night and apparently had a whole lot of questions about it for their audience too. So, I'm out there to spread the word and, try to educate people on what it is we're doing and why we're seeing the results we're seeing and all that kind of stuff. So I guess that's it on the frame rating stuff. So that's the podcast, everybody. Oh, wait, no. No.
Ryan, on episode 47 of Stargate Atlantis, Dr. Hewlett, or whatever his name was, he was able to equalize the outputs of two ZPMs. Why can't AMD use those same algorithms?
I don't know. You'll have to ask AMD. The interesting thing is at GDC I had so many talks with them about cool little tidbits here and here and here and here that I need to coalesce into a story. Like, did you know that VSync in iFinity doesn't work? It just doesn't. It's not a thing that you can do.
It just doesn't happen.
Did you know that, Josh?
Now what?
iFinity
VSync doesn't work?
You can enable it and nothing happens.
Yeah, I was wondering why my screen would tear even in just 2D sometimes.
And you know why? Here's the secret for podcast listeners only. As I found out, the compositing engine that AMD has for Crossfire
or iFinity.
I'm sorry, yeah, for both. It's for Crossfire iFinity combinations. Doesn't have the bandwidth to handle 5760 by 1080 frames at 60 hertz. So it has to use a software merging of these instead of a hardware merging that it can use on every other resolution or lower resolution.
Would that fix it if they got the bigger GBs?
If they got the bigger GBs, and by bigger GBs you mean a better compositing engine, yes, in theory. Because in one of the screenshots of our initial frame rating story, we showed where we talked about iFinity issues, where we showed a bar that had, I don't know, where the frame was you saw the same frame 2 times in the screenshot, like portions of it, but not consecutively like they should be, and that is because of compositing engine hiccups at 5760 by 1080.
So are you saying that means it always goes slower than 60? Is that it doesn't have the bandwidth to go to the full 60 hertz?
Right.
It's not hardware controlled, so
correct.
There's errors in software, correct?
Correct. Yes. So the compositing, they can't use the hardware compositing engine, so they're using software compositing, which goes over the PCI Express bus, has to be done in software after the fact, and you get these bugs and imperfections.
Interesting.
It is very interesting, and it's something that I never would have seen without these colored overlays. Looking at the analysis of this video after the fact, why did our scripts error out? Let me go through this frame by frame, these 6,000 frames of video, and see what is happening. And you get to see these types of things that you never would have otherwise been able to see. So,
well, learn something new every day.
That's what we're here for.
Sounds like an area that AMD, again, needs to upgrade.
Indeed. So let's talk about a couple of other things. We'll blast through this a little bit quicker. Maury posted a couple of articles up this week. One of them is pretty interesting. This is the Oyen Digital Mini Pro eSATA USB 3.0 portable hard drive enclosure. Alan, you don't have any experience with this brand or this particular device or anything, right?
Not that brand, no.
Okay, so this was actually a device sent to us by ASUS because they are the first motherboard vendor to support UASP, which is an updated protocol for USB 3.0, and this enclosure is one of the first to support that. So they wanted to demonstrate that performance advantage and that kind of stuff. So it is a drive enclosure. You add your own. I think it's a 2.5-inch drive, right?
Yep.
Is it?
I don't know.
It looks like it might be bigger than that.
You might be able to wedge it in there, but I think they were talking for 2.5s.
I don't think you should wedge your hard drives into it. If it doesn't fit,
That's why the top comes off.
if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit.
So UASP is supposed to be
2.5.
basically command queuing and stuff over USB, right?
My understanding of it is
Protocol.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it says up to 15 millimeter SATA 2.5-inch drives.
Oh, okay.
But if you look at the performance page, the difference between normal and UASP is pretty substantial, right? So if you look at this is from Addo benchmark, and here is the Intel-based USB 3 performance, normal versus UASP, and then the As Media controller, normal versus UASP, and pretty compelling differences there on reads and writes. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's something worth keeping an eye out for, Alan?
Absolutely, yeah. Now realize, I mean, everything has to support it, right? It's one of those things where you can't just have whatever your random USB 3 port and think you're going to get awesome speeds just by buying this thing. It has to be support on both ends.
Right.
You know, it'll work. It just won't work at the full speed.
Ken linked me to a YouTube video that's not going to load on my freakishly slow internet. I think my laptop might be connected to the wrong network or something like that. But we actually did a demo of the Z77 USB 3.0 Boost, which is the kind of marketing term that they gave to the UASP implementation of their Z77 motherboards. If you go to youtube.com/PCPer and search ASUS Z77 USB, you'll find that there, but the video is not really loading up for me here, which is awesome. So check that out. Pricing is $39.95 actually on Amazon, so pretty reasonably priced, which is nice. So not all boards are going to support UASP today, but into the future they will. Now the other article that Maury posted up was a news post about NVIDIA's announcing the GeForce GT 700M series of mobile GPUs. Are you guys all excited? Yeah?
Yay.
GT 700s? Huh? It's just Kepler. Sorry, surprise. So it's not a new architecture. What they have been able to do, though, is they have improved Optimus a little bit. They have added the GeForce Experience support to the mobile parts, and then the most significant thing is they've added GPU boost into mobile GPUs this time around as well that they did not have before. So what does that mean? It actually allows you to dynamically change the clock speed of the GPU. Let's see if I can get this one screenshot to load. Dynamically change the clock speed of the GPU. And because it's in a notebook form factor, it's actually able to leverage the thermal headroom of the CPU as well as the GPU. So if the CPU, oftentimes in a notebook, the CPU and GPU will share the same kind of heat sink assembly, and then the same software kind of manages the fan controllers for the entire assembly. And with this, if you have unused component power or you have unused thermal headroom on a notebook, you'll be able to increase the GPU clock speeds accordingly, right? So it's kind of what AMD has been advertising with their APUs and that kind of stuff on the notebook form factors. Okay, now that we have them on the same die, we can do this. NVIDIA is claiming to be able to do that despite the fact that they're across two different chips on the same platform. So the specs released here are the 750M, 740, 735, and 720. They're not super high power machines. With this GT 750M is 384 CUDA cores, up to 976 megahertz boost clock, up to 967 plus boost, and memory speeds up to 2500 megahertz and up to 2 gigs. As with all mobile kind of part configurations, there's a lot of up to consideration. They're claiming, compared to the HD 4000 integrated graphics of Ivy Bridge, that the GT 750M will get about 5.5 times the performance, and that is using Battlefield 3, Crysis 2, Just Cause 2, Dirt 3, F1 2011 at moderate settings for that metric. So keep an eye out for that if you care. Now, this is where we would normally break to say hi to our good friend Alex and an ad spot from MSI. Unfortunately, as Josh wipes tears from his head and his eyes, Alex is no longer with us. And by with us, I mean MSI or the PC Perspective guys. He's not dead. Don't worry, guys. But he is no longer with MSI, so we're not going to run that MSI ad anymore. We're working with MSI to maybe find a replacement. I don't know if we'll ever be able to find somebody to replace Alex in our hearts. But I hope so, because otherwise we have to cancel the show. That's just the way it's going to have to be. So if you would kindly would you kindly, I didn't even do that on purpose. That's stuck in my head now from the Bioshock playing that we were doing. If you're in the chat, let us know that you want MSI to make a new ad for this podcast. You want their support, and it has become part of the show, part of the entertainment, part of what you expect.
Part of the value of the podcast.
Exactly.
That we're trying to pass on to you.
Right.
And get money for ourselves.
And the person that sucks up best to MSI gets the headset.
That's interesting. So they have new motherboards coming out. We have new platforms. Haswell will be out sooner rather than later. We're wanting to bring them back into the fold, but we need to convince them now that Alex has left. He knew the value of this audience, these crazy people that watch us do this podcast and this live stream and stuff. But we need everybody else to kind of join in and tell us in the chat. Tell us in the chat, because Ken's logging it all, and then I'll send all this out to MSI, how much we need to see MSI back in the fold with the PC Perspective podcast. So keep those messages coming. I'm recording it. I'll filter out all the stupid ones, and then I'll pass it straight on to the new people in charge at MSI. That's what we need. All right, how about some news now? Battlefield. Did we talk about Battlefield 4 last week? I feel like we did. Did we just briefly mention it or something?
Didn't we say something like Battlefield 3.5?
Okay, that sounds about right. Okay, so let's just skip this. The Battlefield 4 17-minute gameplay trailer is out there if you care. All right, so let's get into some other news. GTC 2013, Tim Very went there from PC Perspective, did a great job, and apparently he did such a good job that he got some stuff that he wasn't supposed to, and we posted a news story about it, and then we dealt with it later.
Better to ask forgiveness than permission.
Well, yeah, you know what? As it turned out, they were in the wrong. There were no NDAs on any sessions at GTC, and they thought that was the case. I just kind of thought, if you bring a bunch of media into your private, confidential briefing about the future of your company, you want people to write about the future of that company because it looks so cool and interesting. But regardless, here's the new information. Jeremy, did you read over any of this? Do you want to tell us about kind of what Tim saw in the handful of slides that were interesting?
Well, I mean, the whole thing about the Oculus Rift, assuming my internet can hold up to this, is that you're looking at two 1080p displays sitting directly on your eyeballs, more or less. It's going to be really interesting to see, especially since it's going to support 3D. So they've already worked with a bunch of different companies, stuff you'd expect, like Team Fortress 2, Half-Life, Warface, but maybe some you wouldn't have expected, like Minecraft and Autodesk 3D, which does sort of bring in another idea to this, which is, hey, this would also be a very good working tool. It's pretty light. They're talking about 350 grams or so. They warn that if you're imbibing, you probably don't want to use it because the motion sickness is going to get to you.
I can vouch for that. Don't do that.
Yeah. So, be warned that it might be a little bit interesting to have those eyeballs or your TV strapped directly to your eyeballs. But they also came out with something, sort of a theme that they're going for, which is if it's not in a cell phone, it's not an Oculus. On the other hand, considering how much your cell phone can do for you, as far as, 4x's movement, decent, really decent resolution, and fairly good performance. It's really going to be interesting to see. I'm looking forward to seeing these come out. We're going to see the developers' kits come out fairly soon.
Mine should be here.
Sorry?
Like my dev kit should be here, and I'm mad that it's not.
Nice.
I'm mad that it's not. I am
Hey,
excited.
Jeremy, can you please say, "Shall we play a game"?
Shall we play a game?
See, you're so 8-bit. We need an 8-bit soundtrack behind you too.
I don't. Yeah.
But
But look at these potential. These are listed as quote potential Oculus VR games. Team Fortress 2, everybody. Unreal Tournament 3, so that'll be good for our game nights. Crisis, Hawken, Left 4 Dead, Dota, Half-Life, Skyrim with the Rift.
That's off the hook.
Sounds pretty awesome.
As long as you're not using a Wii for the controller, you're probably okay.
And I don't know if this is the mock-up of a potential consumer concept, right? So here's 1080p, HD, 3D.
That looks like a really, really heavy-duty one of those, things where you do like this.
Oh,
A Viewmaster.
yes.
Viewmaster.
But I mean, see that, and now it looks like it has cameras pointing out, right? So that would give you the ability to do augmented reality with it as well. Or maybe you have that. How awesome would it be in software for you to be able to you can still see what's going on around you, but you have the game as an overlay, and you can adjust the opacity. So if you walk down the street while you're wearing it,
my wife's gonna hate me.
Mine already came in, Ryan.
Let me see. Ah, yes. Is that the AMD
using
one?
them. It's like 3D too. But all it shows is AMD slides.
You do, yeah. Is that the one that AMD gave out at their press conference thing?
Yeah.
It was a really good idea. It was a really cool thing. So that's some of the news for Oculus. They're talking about a potential secondary dev kit, which is apparently all this was new news. We didn't really know that it was that new of news, but it turns out it was. So there you go. Speaking of reality-based stuff from GDC, Activision showed off real-time character rendering tech. We didn't talk about this last week, I don't think. This picture right here, scary good-looking, right, for a real-time rendered image.
That is creepy. The video is even creepier.
Yeah, so we'll see if this video will buffer for me or not.
Buffer.
There it goes. Come on.
Buffer that.
So I won't bother with the audio or anything, but what's important there is the facial expressions and like the eyebrows raising and the mouth movement and all that kind of stuff. There's actually a point here towards the end. Where is it at?
More towards the middle.
Towards the middle, where he
goes
just
through
does
surprised
random,
and
yeah, and the eye movements and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's.
At least I didn't have to worry about Trez FX support.
Well, it's not an accident that they leave hair off on these kinds of demos,
No.
right? But I mean, that's real-time rendered crap, guys. That's 180 frames a second
Where do you think I come
on a
from?
680. Well, that's true. Josh is, and what we do is we slightly blur Josh so that we didn't have this technology. We were a little bit generation back, so we.
But look at that HDR on my forehead.
That's impressive as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, we decided bloom would just be too much.
So I guess that demo as part of that wasn't a PlayStation 4 tech demo or anything. It was running on a GTX 680. NVIDIA actually showed that at GDC in their kind of private booth area as well. And they showed, what was the other demo they showed? It was the water physics based demo. Yeah, the boat something. I don't know what they called it, but very, very cool stuff. Gaming is not going away. Now, PC gaming is not going away, I guess I should say. Intel will allegedly release 3 Ivy Bridge E processors later this year. Jeremy, can your internets handle this news story?
Well, considering the lack of hotness of this news story, I think they should be able to. Long story short, the 4 series replacements of the 3 series that we've got out now have the same core count, 2 6s and a 4, same L3 cache, same TDP. Only difference is they've dropped down to 22 nanometer manufacture as opposed to 32 nanometer, and there's been a slight bump in clock speed. Like the top bought, the 4960X, it's a 3.6 base as opposed to a 3.3, and it goes all the way to 4 gigahertz as opposed to 3.9.
Yeah.
It's similar story for the other ones. This isn't a huge jump. Then again, I would be hard-pressed to explain to Intel why they would have to put out new chips in any way, shape, or form,
Because
apart from, perfecting the process.
Yeah.
Because Haswell is coming.
I tell you what, I'm not entirely convinced that this is all they're going to release.
I hope not.
I really think that they want to release an 8-core part. I can't imagine that. Because that 4960 is going to be a grand. Just like its and it's
predecessor.
only 100 megahertz faster, right, than the 3960X. So you're not really getting much performance difference. I guess the benefit, you're getting 300 megahertz faster when all the cores are loaded. And you drop from 32 to 22 nanometer, but you don't get any TDP advantage. So it would be hard for me. Josh, does it make sense that you wouldn't, if you were kept the same core count and you kept basically the same frequencies, but the TDP doesn't drop?
Depends on the architecture.
Well, we have a general idea of what this is, right? We're going from Sandy Bridge to Ivy Bridge. Ivy Bridge is 77 watts, and Sandy Bridge was, 85 watts or something like that. So there was some kind of TDP drop going from quad-core to quad-core. I know there are slight variations on what's going on here, and there's no integrated graphics, I don't think, on the Ivy Bridge.
No, there's no graphics, and also it's going to be a bigger die anyway. And Intel has, not issues with 22 nanometer, but their 3D Fin technology, it doesn't scale with voltage and clock speed and density as well as perhaps they were hoping. And so you're going to get some, per clock improvements and some performance improvements there, but it just doesn't sound like the TDPs are going to be all that impressive. I don't know.
Yeah, Knight Rider in the chat points out that the 3970X actually has 150 watt TDP, which I guess I didn't know if that was actually the case. So,
Damn you, PR people giving us the wrong TDPs again.
No, there was no 3970 in that table. Only the 3970.
Oh, fair enough.
I want the 8-core part because I want it to be our streaming system, right? So we run into CPU bottlenecks on our 3770X overclocked Ivy Bridge part as it is now, and I would definitely like to see an 8-core part that we could clock higher and run more stuff on. So that would be ideal. Something wrong, Ken?
Yeah, you froze the stream.
Do we need to pause for station identification? We're just going to keep going. All right. Is the stream still working for everybody else?
No.
But are we
Doesn't
still
look like it.
recording?
It's bandwidth. The internet's acting up.
Let me load it fresh again.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what I think at least, because the CPU's fine.
CPU's fine? Okay. All right. Well, we'll continue on. The audio will be working. The video will catch up here momentarily.
Hey, can you turn off anti-aliasing?
Do we have Crossfire enabled
Oh, no.
on that machine? No, not so good. Okay. Josh, tell me about 16 nanometer FinFET ARM processors from TSMC that are 64 bits.
Yeah, the A57, the Cortex A57 is going to be one of the first 64-bit ARM processors out, and they're looking at TSMC. They've kind of got this strange kind of half-half node at 16 nanometer. It's going to feature the FinFET technology, which is the kind of analog to Intel's 3D. What do they call those?
The Tri-Gate.
3D
yeah.
FETs.
Tri-Gate.
Yeah.
Yeah, FinFET, Tri-Gate, all kind of an alias.
Sure.
But anyway, Cortex A57, it's going to be a brand new design. It's going to have better IPC. It's going to be 64-bit. We've been waiting for this for a while. All current ARM processors, at least the Cortex A7, A9, A15, they're all 32-bit at max, which is why cell phones don't have any more than 2 gigs of main memory. at this point because it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to go above that. But still, NVIDIA's Project Denver is based off the 64-bit ISA, not necessarily the A57 itself. So it's going to be interesting. TSMC again, they've had a long relationship with ARM. If you look at like NVIDIA, their Tegra have all been TSMC 40 nanometer until the Tegra 4, which is TSMC 28 nanometer. So it's nice to see that they're looking a little past even just the 22 and 20 nanometer node, go a little bit lower to 16. I think it has to do more with the optics and the lithography is why they're going with 16 rather than taking the big jump all the way down to 14. They can use a lot of the same equipment to do 16, I believe, as they can with 20 and 22. And so it saves a little money, gets them a little bit better transistor density. It may not improve, transistor switching performance, leakage, anything like that, but it certainly will improve transistor density. So it's going to be an interesting jump in technology. It's still going to be a while before we see these Cortex A57s, and I think the little brother of that is like the Cortex A53, if I'm not mistaken. I probably am, but you get the impression of that. They're also thinking about doing the big little with these two products. So, at low power usage, you'll have the lower A50 series, and while you need the performance, the A57 comes into play.
Very similar to what NVIDIA did with the Tegra 3, right?
Well, sort of, because, it's more in line with what Samsung is doing with their latest Exynos. They've got the Cortex A7s to do the low power. They got quad-core of that. Then they got the quad-core A15s to do the heavy lifting when needed.
All right, well, the 64-bit ARM parts are here, but not really. They will be here soon, maybe eventually. On April 6th, which is just Ken's birthday, Ken will be 21 on April 6th. That's the whole news story. Can you guys believe our Ken is growing up?
So he will finally stop getting kicked out of Vegas.
Right, yeah. And now I'm going to cancel all the CES trips. So... but no, in other news, if you live in or around the San Francisco area on April 6th, AMD is hosting an event for fans called the AMD Fan Day. We have the registration link in our news post at pcper.com. You'll get a chance to speak with developers from BioShock Infinite, Far Cry 3, Crysis 3, Devil May Cry, Tomb Raider, as well as AMD representatives. And then Vizio, IGN, Ubisoft, Sapphire, and Logitech will also be attending. The event will be held at City View at Metreon, which is in downtown San Francisco, at 5:30 on Saturday, April the 6th. Best of all, the first 1,000 registered attendees in the door will get a free AMD A8 5600K APU. And then the first 120 attendees will win both the APU and an A85X motherboard. So you get pretty much everything you're going to need for a budget system build out of that as well. There's going to be modded PCs on display. Apparently you cannot play that drum set. And then I do want to point out here, I think this is important, but it looks like Jeremy was at the last one right here.
I think Ken is playing with the drum set on the streaming machine right now.
Oh, you think that's what we're using? That's the power we're using for the stream in general. But check that out, AMD Fan Day, San Francisco, April 6th, if you're in the area. Now, let's bring in Alan. Alan, come back into the fold here. Let's talk about Seagate launching a 4 terabyte drive, but what's unique about this is that the platter density is up again?
Yeah, 1 terabyte per platter. So 4 terabyte drive, 4 platters. That's a good thing.
What does that mean for performance? I assume we'll see a performance increase because of that.
Yeah, you get the sequential reads go up, basically, is generally what happens when you increase platter density. Now, they can increase platter density 2 different ways, right? They can make the tracks wider or narrower in the process.
Okay.
And depending on which way they go there, that changes the sequential transfer speed. And also just the fact that there's the drive is just more dense, right? The platters are more dense. So you're just going to get more bits flying past the head per revolution. The other thing this drive has going for it is 7,200 RPM. So it's not a relatively slow spinning. It's like it's not a 5400 RPM drive.
Right.
I'm hoping that they don't run into heat issues. But with it only being a 4-platter drive, it shouldn't.
Well, no. Does increasing density have anything to do with increasing heat?
No,
Or is
it's
it
the
just,
platter count.
just that you're worried about the 7200 RPM?
More platters, more
It's the-
friction.
It's the speed and the platters. That's what affects the heat of the drive.
Okay.
Previously, we've seen, Seagate hard drives back when they came out with their first, I think it was their first 3 terabyte drive that only came in the external enclosure. It actually had heat issues because it was I think it was a 4 or 5 platter drive at the time. And it was 7200 RPM, and it was in this plastic, unventilated enclosure, and it just cooked itself. So hopefully these won't have any kind of issue like that.
The quotes here in the post that Tim made up says that the drive will boast an average read-write data rate of 146 megs a second and a max sustained transfer speed of 180 megs per second. How does that kind of compare to other mechanical drives?
That's actually, sequentially, I think that's even faster than a Velociraptor 1 terabyte. You're not going to see the same seek speed because the platter is, again, only spinning so fast.
Sure.
But the seeks look good. And it has all the typical specs you'd see on nothing else is groundbreaking other than the platter density, really. 64 meg cache, that's the same as what we usually see.
Right.
Yeah. So, and the seeks that they claim there, they say 8.5 millisecond to 9.5 millisecond seek times.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking they're not accounting for rotational latency there.
Okay.
That's just how long the head takes to get to the track, and then you have to wait for the platter to make it around.
Gotcha.
But still, pretty speedy drive. Looks to be pretty good. My only reservation is that my own mantra for storage is if you're going really high density, high capacity hard drive storage, I usually like to go with slower spinning drives because you don't usually need insane throughput from that stuff because it's just your mass storage. Right. You don't necessarily want to have your Windows install on a 4 terabyte drive. First of all, because it's sort of a headache because you have to have UEFI and a bunch of other stuff has to work correctly in order to install Windows onto a drive greater than 2 terabytes.
Right.
So you need motherboard compatibility and UEFI BIOS and all this other stuff has to all play nicely. So people tend to not do that, meaning that the drive's just going to be a slave drive. Right? It's just going to be secondary, just storing data, basically. But if you were to install an OS on this thing, that would be a huge pain in the butt to move all that stuff over for when you do that OS reinstall, and now you're like, oh, I gotta move 4 terabytes of my junk over to another drive just to reinstall Windows. That would be horrible.
Does this move enable 5 terabyte drives if they return to a 5 platter configuration? Or
yeah, they could probably make one right now. I would imagine. I would hope that it wouldn't spin at 7,200 RPM because that one would be a hot drive.
Well, you hope that it would, but you don't think that it's likely that they'd be able to spin it at that reliably.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Do you think a head crash sounds different on a platter that dense?
Nope. All you hear is the screaming of the owner.
Yeah.
Other news here, Lenovo is allegedly expanding chip design team, will design its own mobile processors. According to an EE Times report, Lenovo will be expanding its integrated circuits design team to 100 engineers by the second half of this year. And Lenovo will reportedly task the newly expanded team to design an ARM processor of its own to join the ranks of Apple, Intel, NVIDIA, Qualcomm, Huawei, Quay, Shure, Samsung, and others. And then Tim posted a picture of a phone with Intel inside here.
Very good, very good. So,
Tim writes here, it's unclear whether Lenovo simply intends to license an existing ARM core and graphics module, or if it wants to expand it to develop its own, kind of like to the level that NVIDIA is doing. Josh, what do we take out of this move? Is it maybe Lenovo kind of hedging its bets? Do they maybe not see a part in the next couple of years coming up that they really think is going to help them stand out from the crowd? I got to actually use one of these Lenovo Clover Trail based things, and it was pretty nice, the one that's pictured here. It's much bigger than the photo that's on, but pretty nice little device.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the reasoning is, but with ARM providing chip licenses and GPU licenses, if Lenovo goes up to TSMC or UMC or Global Foundries and says, hey, we want to order X amount of wafers. We have a special deal with these packaging guys in Singapore. What are you going to sell them for? And Global Foundries, whoever wants more wafer orders, they give them a good deal. You could see a 10 to 15% decrease in base costs for Lenovo. And since they're providing a lot of these phones for China, and they want to be a bigger kind of player in the marketplace, not just in China but the world, having your products have a nice 15% decrease in overall cost by just paying 100 guys, 100 engineers to develop these chips from licensed designs and get them to market, it kind of seems like that's the more logical reason that they're doing it. They're going to save 15% per chip, and that's just a number I'm pulling out of places and things, but it kind of makes sense because why buy your chip from NVIDIA when there's not a whole lot that differentiates it from another guy that uses another ARM core that they license directly from them. Only the advantage you get would be like if you went with the Snapdragons, which have crate architectures, which are kind of in between A9s and A15s. They're designed from scratch, and they have their own graphics technology in there that is unique. That's kind of the only reason. I mean, if you're going to use a A15 with a Mali 603 graphics portion, you can integrate those in rather quickly because you license the designs from ARM. You get those to the fab fast, and you save some money.
Alrighty. You know what else?
I'm a little worried that they're thinking about outsurfacing Microsoft. That they honestly think they can make like the equivalent of a WinRT cell, because Lenovo can sell anything.
Well, they could sell it to the Chinese markets. I don't know. I mean, I think the idea here would be is they're just trying to get it. If they make tablets and they make cell phones, they want to get them as cheap as possible to sell them into these emerging markets, and that may be the indicator, right? So, like that picture of that Intel Clover Trail Plus device is not going to be an inexpensive product in any sense of the word, right? So, I don't think that, I don't know if they believe they can differentiate their product enough from what Qualcomm or Nvidia can do, or Samsung can do with their processors. I'd be curious to see what they're doing, right? So they're a big company. They got a lot of...
Well, they're number one seller of PCs on the planet right now.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they're just trying to pull a Dell, which could be bad, I guess. Our final news story of the day is about a GTX 670 graphics card. You may not have guessed this. This is the ASUS DirectCU Mini. It's a GTX 670 Mini. What makes it mini? Well, it's tiny. Look how cute that card is. And so this is a GTX 670 that basically, according to this picture, if you believe the scaling and everything, will fit inside the bounds or very close to inside the bounding area of the Mini ITX motherboard.
Hey, you know what? That card may not be long, but look at its girth.
Well, that's the same as all the other graphics cards.
No,
I have
it's
a
not.
question
Look
about,
where the clip is
Oh, no, you're
for
right.
the stinking ATX backplate. You got a good inch above there. You know what I'm saying?
So do they make Mini ITX cases that have the extra slot hanging one slot over past the edge of the Mini ITX form factor?
I don't know. Yeah. Yes, they do.
They do?
I guess the issue for this, I'll be curious, how many of those cases don't also have the extra several inches of room past the graphics card?
Exactly.
To actually fit a normal GTX 670. I'd be curious. I mean,
Not
ASUS
to mention the plug, the 8-pin plug that goes on top. Add
Single
another,
8-pin, yeah.
3/4 of an inch?
Yeah. But it's unique design, right? So nobody has a GTX 670 that only uses a single 8-pin power connector, as far as I know, and they don't have any that are this small. They say, let's see, Tim wrote in his news post, it's nice to know that gamers will soon have the option of powering a small form factor LAN box with a GPU as fast as the GTX 670. Water cooling enthusiasts will be happy to know that the card still uses a reference PCB, so if you want to change over any of that component, you can still do that. which should make it compatible with existing water blocks for the current 670. Pricing and availability not yet announced, but it is official and should be available sometime soon. It's just it's late in the GPU life cycle, and they're trying to do something unique. It's overclocked. It's got 2 gig frame buffer. It's got all the specs of a GTX 670 that you would normally see. I think actually the clock so it went up from 915 to 928, I think, in terms of the base clock speed on that. And then it still has 2 DVI, 1 DisplayPort, and 1 single HDMI port output connector. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of cases and chassis that ASUS has done the research on and said, you know what, this card is going to be good for these specific use cases, as opposed to a standard 670 or 680 sized graphics card. Hey, but innovation, and it's cute. It's small and cute, and I imagine it's going to cost the same, if not a little bit more, than a normal 670. So we will see. All right, let's move on to our hardware software picks of the week. But before we do, here's a reminder of the Rocket Rocat Cave true 5.1 gaming headset that we are giving away. This is a $120 gaming headset from our friends at Rocket Rocat. We're such good friends. I don't know how to say the name. At CES, this was very specifically spelled out to me how to say it, and I totally am blanking on it. Has a desk, remote control, gaps for ear ventilation. That's good for Josh's sweaty head. Ergonomic design, foldable, easy to carry. And like I said, it is real 5.1 surround sound. There are multiple speakers inside each ear cup. So this is pretty sweet. I kind of don't want to give it away anymore, but I already said we would. And it says, after silence, that which comes nearest to expressing the inexpressible is real sound. That's a quote from Dr. Eric J. Dale, a Rocat scientist. I'm the PC Per scientist. How can you win this? Go to the post. If you're watching this live, you're going to have to wait till tomorrow, but if you're watching it after the fact, go to pcper.com/podcast. Look for the post for episode 245. If you click on that post, at the bottom of it will be a form you can fill out, and then in a few days we will pick a random winner, email you, and send you this headset. Now, on to our hardware software picks of the week, and let's hope my video loads for mine, otherwise this pick will be a little bit...
Hey, I've got one thing to say.
Yeah, no, you go ahead.
After each PC Perspective podcast, the visuals may only last a few moments, but their impact will last an eternity.
That is a quote from Josh Walrath, PC Perspective scientist.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So while I wait for my video to load, let's come back to me last. Jeremy. Okay, nothing is loading. Jeremy, what is your pick? Describe it.
Well, it sure as hell ain't Shaw Internet tonight, I can tell you that.
Well, it's not whatever I've got going on here either. So
No, it's someone has already got, like Alan mentioned, the Oculus Rift dev kit. And one of the first things that they decided they didn't like was the fact that you needed to plug it into mains power to make it work. So they modded it, and now they've got power coming in over a USB port. So hey, it's just attached to the computer. It isn't attached to the wall as well. I think there's going to be a lot of fun things done with this Rift, and I don't think that Oculus actually saw a lot of them coming.
Now, it probably needs like better than USB to, half an amp power. So
only
I'm guessing,
500 milliamps.
Well, right, but that's all it draws?
Apparently so.
Well, then they should have made it draw its power from USB in the first place. So
yeah, it seems kind of odd that they would do that, right?
Well,
yeah.
And hey, this is the dev kit. It's not the finished form.
Oh.
True.
So I think someone at Oculus is now going, oh crap, why didn't we think of that?
All right. Let's see. Okay, here. I think I switched over to wired networking, so things are going a little bit faster. Here is the powering the Oculus Rift with USB mod page, Ken, if we want to show that, with a whole bunch of dollar bills, y'all, underneath it. Interesting. Okay, let's bring up Josh next.
Me. Okay,
What's your
so
pick?
my mom wanted a good monitor.
Your mom.
I kind of aimed her at this, kind of curious what it was. And it turned out to be pretty good. I mean, yeah, it's only 1920 by 1080. It's 27 inch, but it's IPS, and the thing is beautiful. So
Hey, is
for
that
her,
one with
it's
the super thin
perfect.
bezel you were talking about?
So it's a fairly thin bezel, but of course, once you actually turn it on, there's a good quarter-inch of black space around the entire damn thing.
So the
Okay, so that
glass-
question we had the other
But
day
that was the last one. Last week's was an LG. This is the ASUS Designo series.
oh,
Designo, kind of like Orgasmo, but
like a wino.
designing thing.
Designo, because Americans like that.
Americans like
Americans.
Designo.
Designo.
But anyway, it's a beautiful screen. For her, it's great because she gets the 1920 by 1080, but she doesn't have to squint to read things.
Fair enough.
So if you don't want to take a chance on the Korean monitors, this is a nice monitor for around the same price. You don't get the resolution, but it's still a nice IPS monitor. Response is more than adequate, and it looks nice. It's a solid base. You can't adjust it up and down, can't rotate it around, but for the price, for the quality, I would say it's well worth it if you're not wanting to go Korean. And I mean, who doesn't want to go Korean?
Moving on, Alan, your hardware software pick is?
All right, so this I sort of stumbled on, not by accident, but I was looking for some other purpose. Wanted to extract a voicemail directly off of an iPhone. And I was like, how can you do that? Is there a way to do that? Well, ran into this thing called iBackupBot. So it can do that. But the way that it does it is actually kind of cool. It doesn't pull it right off the phone. And this also applies to iPads. Not that you're going to have a voicemail on an iPad, but any iOS device that has a backup, right? iTunes makes a backup. If you tell it to do that backup locally, it saves it to your hard drive in a folder that's kind of buried in your app data.
Sure.
But this program is able to interpret all of that crazy file naming convention and how all those databases interrelate and everything.
Yeah.
And basically you just browse through the backup. It has all the different, basically everything that's stored in the backup, all the pictures, all the pictures that are not even the regular pictures in the regular places, like pictures that you might have texted somebody, and that was the only place that they were because they might have been deleted somewhere else. Like any kind of media at all that gets stored in the backup, you can just walk through it with this. And that's including like voicemail files and stuff that you normally never have access to.
Yeah.
So you don't have to jailbreak the thing because it just pulls it out of the backup. And you can actually pull stuff out, if you have a old backup from a couple of years ago and, you're long lost whatever, you wanted to get out of there, you can pull it out of there with this thing. It's a pretty cool app.
Nifty. All right, now let's get on to the real story here. This is my pick. That's really what's important about this. And that is this. I'm going to have to unmute my laptop because we don't have the audio connected to this. And I'm going to put my microphone at it. Everybody pay attention.
Prepare for sexy time.
I thought that was part of the video.
And experience the ultimate evolution of PC gaming. The Couchmaster provides an exclusive support for your PC input devices.
Ooh,
while you are
ride me
sitting
like a
comfortably on your
Couchmaster.
old couch. 3 removable heel-of-hand cushions for the most
Hands-free.
sessions you have ever experienced.
Nothing will straddle you like
Your
this.
mouse at any time.
Oh, pull that out of my pouch.
Store even more gaming tools. Perfect fit through adjustable Velcro fastener. Internal cable routing and integrated USB 3.0 hub installation possible through discrete inside compartments. Side exits for your active USB and headset cable to connect simply to your PC.
I'm not touching that one.
Adjustable
Yeah, if your mind is already in the gutter, you don't want to listen to this ad.
Connect the Couchmaster to your PC in your living room for the ultimate gaming experience. Couchmaster, the next gaming generation. Exclusively designed in Germany. Now available at
German design.
.com.
Oh, dear Lord. People buy this stuff? Oh, wait, you did.
I have this device on my couch at my house. My wife is not happy about it. I'll tell you that up front.
So surprised.
She is not ecstatic. It takes up a lot of space on the couch.
Okay, so for those audio listeners, this thing looks like it belongs in
in bed one day, you'll be fine.
this thing looks like it belongs in a porn house.
No, so functionally, what we're talking about is basically a pontoon boat, right? Where the two
So
pontoons
that's what they call them these days.
sit on
I
either
hope
side
you
of you
don't
on the
mention
couch,
that to your wife.
and we got a pontoon boat for the couch. And you know what?
Honey,
It actually works really well. It really does. Because remember when my hack was the over table hospital tray table thing?
Yep.
This is a better option than that. It's significantly more expensive as well, but it is significantly better also. So it's 129 euros for the basic one, and then you add a little bit if you want the active USB 3.0 extension cable included. You can see this person obviously really enjoys the Couchmaster.
You didn't buy that extension, did you, Ryan?
No, that
dear
add-on
Lord.
wasn't
Yeah, I
optional.
wonder what USB accessories are plugged into that one.
ooh, PC Perspective's on. Better get the Couchmaster.
It actually works really well though. All
I bet.
joking aside, it's actually a pretty neat device. We're gonna do a video of it. We're gonna do a little review and show you how it works. Josh, gonna
Does
show you how it
Hitachi
works.
make a accessory for it?
no.
No.
Yeah, no.
No, it's German. It's Dyson.
Yeah.
I like that Jeremy's audio has progressively gotten worse and worse and worse throughout this episode.
Close the video.
Jeremy is a moving blur, and he sounds like he's, well, you guys can hear him.
He looks
but
like a
the video-
Doom 2 character or something.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Sean.
there's like
Thank you.
he's literally 8-bit.
Look at this. They added a microfiber version. Oh, that wasn't an
no.
option before. That is crap.
Is it stain resistant?
It's easier to clean up for Josh.
Oh, dear Lord.
All right. That's my pick of the week. We'll have more information on that soon. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this edition of the PC Perspective Podcast. If you have friends, if you have family that want to learn about PC technology, please send them to our website, pcper.com. If you want to share with them the podcast that you just listened to, I don't know why, but pcper.com/podcast. That's the URL you should give them. Also, that's where you should go to enter the contest to win the Rocat Cave, I almost said Rave, gaming headset.
And next week, Ryan will have the video, Ryan and the real Couchmaster. It'll be starting at Sundance next week.
It's artistic, okay? It's artistic.
It is.
It's not porn, it's art. It's the human body, Josh. It's a beautiful thing. So let's get the hell off this show. Thank you, everybody, for joining us in the chat room. If you want to join us live, it's pcper.com/live, or just go to pcper.com. Check the right-hand side for the schedule, what lists our upcoming live events. So thank you, everybody, for hanging out. We'll see you next week. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm an 8-bit Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm a really red Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Valentino.
Thanks, guys. See ya.